Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Top Secret by UAP Reporting Center. Today, we are joined by Jason Sands, a retired U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant and one of the more discussed figures in the UAP conversation. If you're not familiar with Jason, he's come forward with extraordinary claims involving covert programs, crash retrievals, and direct encounters with NHI.
I'm definitely being monitored. We're being monitored. This just doesn't happen ever. The lies need to stop. You need some leadership that's willing to step up and say, yeah, we did some things, but you need to come clean. It's been 80 years just about that they've been in contact with these beings. All kinds of stuff could have happened in that time frame. What the heck do you think they have possibly been up to should be what you're thinking about. This is a civilization that's creating and manufacturing these vehicles. A lot of things get over-classified just by virtue of people's laziness. Other times they just don't know what the classification is, and they'll slap a higher classification on just to good measure. My team was just flabbergasted by some of the stuff we intercepted. I got a big picture pretty quickly. And that's the first time I actually heard hybrid being used on that top secret network.
Jason, welcome to Beyond Top Secret by UAP Reporting Center. We are thrilled to have you here. How are you, sir?
Well, doing pretty good today. It's a little hot, but ready to go and excited to have a discussion.
Yeah, Sam, I've been watching, since you've come forward for a long time, so it's a little surreal to have you here. I just want to say thank you for joining us. You have an absolutely fascinating story. I think you basically first came forward in James Fox's last film, right?
Right. Well, a little bit before that, that's when I came forward to Congress, and then actually had my first public speaking on X Space in 2023, March of 2023, I believe. That's when I actually, but yes, it was in conjunction with the film that James Fox was making, and my name actually accidentally got revealed, and that's when I realized I had to go public, because people were starting to make a lot of conjecture statements about what was going on, who I was, and all this other good stuff. So I just figured I may as well. They already know what my name is. I may as well introduce myself so I can make sure that at least I have the chance to speak my own words and my own story without people kind of, not knowing me and making statements that were sometimes not true, which is kind of what motivated me to really want to go public, is that people were starting to state things that I was like, wait, that's not what happened. Stuff.
Yeah, so people in this community will absolutely do that any chance they get to twist your words, twist the story. So coming forward to get the correct story out there, it's really all you can do. So I have a lot of viewers that are new to the UFO community and this conversation. So for viewers meeting you for the first time, can you walk us through your Air Force career? Basically just walk us through your career.
Okay. Well, I did have some activity with strange beings and exotic craft prior to my military career, and it's actually part of my family's history as well. But that didn't affect anything about me joining the Air Force. I just made that decision as a young man that this is something I wanted to do, to prove to myself back in 1985 that I could finish this and get it done. So I joined the Air Force in 1985. I initially was what they call a sheet metal troop, where you go out and you repair, cracks and holes in fuselages of large-bodied aircraft. That's what I did. And then they got overmanned in that career field, and when that happens, they cross-train you out and utilize you in some other career field that's short-manned, and that's what I did. So that's when I ended up in the intel community. The first duty assignment was in Sembach, Germany thereafter. That's where I earned my combat crew badge, because they have a part of the things that they exercise with. You have to hold a mobility position because you have to deploy in the forward battle spaces with some of the other people who need the protections that my particular job field had. So, 'cause when you're out there in the field or if you're out in a facility and we're fighting a war, you want to know what kind of weaknesses you have with your security, and that's kind of what I did with the telecommunications. So that was my first. So that's what I did. That carried through for quite a long time, and it also sets the stage for when I ended up at Nellis. Um, so Nellis came along after Germany. That's where I went to Nevada Test Range, and I worked there for about 6 years, and 3 of those years I was in the program. As everybody else knows, that's the program up there with Groom Lake and Blackwood stuff, exotic tech.
Let me ask you real quick. I don't want to. I want to go in order. I don't want to jump ahead too much. What eroded the most? Let me say, like, what was the biggest difference? Your access to information? Did you like your worldview change, or even your trust in the system? Did anything like eye opening as far as that?
No, my clearance level went from secret to top secret immediately. I had to take an IQ test and other things like that. And then I went to my first duty station. That's where I got read into other things. I had to do some work with that. Then I got to Nellis. But yeah, the big difference was just mainly just that I was going from a manual job where I could, see what I did and knew that I did a good job that day fixing the airplanes, to a job that was more, thinking at a desk, analyzing the information that came in, making sure that it was reported properly and accurately. So it was a completely different change for me. So that was the main difference, is just it was an administrative type of job, paper reporting, as opposed to, turning a screwdriver and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think it was about you that made them say, here's a guy that would fit well into this new program?
Well, as I said, when my clearance got elevated to top secret, that was the first step. That is when they go out and they investigate your whole life. They talk to your parents, they talk to your friends, all that good stuff. They look at your records, all those things. So yeah, they pulled me up on, you had a, what was it, a speeding ticket and all these things. Why didn't you tell us? I was like, well, I thought it was over with. I paid the ticket, I'm done. They're like, no, you got to report that. So it was very particular. So that was the first time I was like, oh, okay, so this is more revealing than I have before, but I had nothing to hide. So I was like, fine, I just had to adjust. Then when I got to Nellis, and also in Germany, there are certain little missions I ran that I had to get briefings for, briefing in, briefing out kind of deal, which meant that I was on a mission that was a little bit more clandestine. And I did that in Germany, but it was not for the program. When I got to Nellis, that's when I got in the program. But when I got to Nellis, that landscape, even the top secret clearance parts, was changed, because then I had to get, when they asked me to go into the program, I had to take a polygraph. And that was the first polygraph I'd ever had. And yeah, that's very daunting. I'm very convinced that that's a really good way to tell if somebody is lying, because you're in a position where there's no hiding. I mean, and that was just it. I passed it with flying colors, but at the same time, I just thought, yeah, this is a very accurate way of doing this, because, you just don't notice anything unusual unless you're hooked up to all those different devices that can see all those things. So yeah, it was good. It was daunting, and I knew it was serious at that point, because the polygraph I knew meant that I was entering a world that they really, really do care about who you are and your integrity level. So I proved to them through that polygraph that I am exactly that. I did show them some skills as well that I did doing my normal job, which was to do the regular, telecommunications assessments and security assessments. And also, being at Nellis, there's that huge test range up there where they, come and fight and exercise with the pilots. So that was one of our jobs, as well as that we would, provide pilot training to those people up range. And we have a couple of main flights that are high up on mountains to help propagate some of the electronic jamming that we used to give to the pilots. And it was all designed to help the pilots to survive a wartime environment. Because the Russians aren't going to take it easy on anybody that's their enemy. And they're going to jam their radios, try them to not drop bombs on targets and confuse them. So we had to do the same thing, and that's what we were emulating for them. So I actually had kind of two different jobs. One was nuanced with the what we call red flag exercises, which was, the uprange, training the pilot stuff. And that kind of is it. Most of the different locations you go to, like even Sembach had a little different kind of a feel on the mission type because we were stationed with other people that ran different types of missions. And like I said, that one had a combat badge attached to it. Other people in my career field have said that, oh, you're just an intel guy. I'm like, well, I've done a lot of other things that maybe you haven't, because they're like, you can't have a combat badge. And I'm like, well, were you around in the 80s when we were doing this stuff in Sembach? So I want to try to clarify some of those things about, how did I get a combat badge and all this other good stuff. And I actually did have to take training for that. So after that, the polygraph, the other skills that I had was that I could memorize things very quickly. I think what they noticed was I was being tested for my next skill level, because there's like 3 skill levels. You go 3 skill level, that's an apprentice. And then you got a 5 skill level, that's a journeyman. And then you got a 7 skill level, that's a master class skilled person. So I was studying for my 5 level, which is the journeyman. And I was being quizzed by my supervisor or one of my friends. And what happened there? But anyway, they just stand in the approach. So I went through about 150 questions, and only one time, and I was able to answer them to about 97 percentile correctness. And even when the person quizzing me was giving me the question, I could finish the question and give the right answer. So I think that got their notice. And then the other time that might have got their notice was when I was uprange. We were on a site where we have to keep it safe to get out the cryptographic material to get the machines to run that we utilize. They run off of tapes that are top secret, and databases that have information that we don't want out also. So this guy was trying to change the lock. If you didn't know, this was one of the locks you're not supposed to open to change the combo. You're supposed to just use this little key that turns the mechanism so you can change the combo. So he takes off the back, and all the parts just went flying into the drawer. And he thought that he'd ruined the mission, because now he's like, how on earth can I, lock things up after we're done? So I guess I just felt like I had, some mechanical knowledge just from being a sheet metal guy and fixing airplanes. So I gave it a shot, and I put it back together, and it worked fine. So I kind of saved the day for him. We all didn't have to hang out until like 10 p.m. when they could come out and fix it for us. So I was able to save the whole day. So those two things got me some notoriety. They're like, oh, Jason's not a dipshit, So that's how I ran. And on top of that, I got along with them. I didn't realize these people that I was working with, that 3 of them were in the program already, and they were already starting to look at me. And so I got to know them because, one way or another, we kind of either ran into each other professionally, or they were just kind of like people that I got along with. So
this was at Nellis?
Yeah. All this was at Nellis. This was all within about the first, 6 months of my being there. That's when all this happened. So the next thing I knew, after they saw those skills of mine, that's when they asked me, they would like you to, take a polygraph, and if you pass that, we'd like to let you be part of our program. And I was like, oh, that's kind of really cool. So, before I knew it, after I passed my polygraph, this is about a week or 2 later, I'm flying up to Groom Lake for the first time and meet the commander and everybody else. And they gave me a grand tour of the whole place. Really nice of the commander to do that. And got to see a lot of strange things. And it was kind of, that was a really big eye opener. I was just like, wow, this is so, like, I just couldn't imagine being in a cooler place as a young man, someplace that was such a patriotic thing that I felt like I was doing. I was going to, make a big difference. I was really going to find out the truth about UFOs and all this stuff, which I did. So we started running missions from there. And, we went to places like White Sands, Eglin Air Force Base, stuff like that.
We lost your video, by the way. I don't know if you knew or not.
No, I did not.
It's just a black screen.
That's okay. We can see if I can shoot that. I might have to pan. Did it come back?
No.
Back, Cameron.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. So somebody was, I don't know what switched around there. I've never had that happen in an interview before. Maybe just the monitoring. But anyways, that was the beginning of my whole trek, and mission after mission, I found out more and more and more. My team was just flabbergasted by some of the stuff we intercepted and discovered. I'd like to also point out that the type of mission that I had gave me access to everything, which is unlike people like Lazar and Hal Footoff and folks like that. They only have scant information about a given site, whereas me, I'd have to go there, and if I'm going to do my job correctly, I have to plug into the director's phones, the scientist's phones. All that stuff has to be monitored, as well as the OSI was there to do the physical part and see if they could break into the facilities that they were working out of. So it was a really big, robust thing, but we gathered so much information that in my job, I got a big picture pretty quickly. Whereas somebody like Lazar, here, fix this, figure out how this works, and that would be all he knew. Whereas me, I'd be listening to what he was doing in his world and all this other good stuff that was going on at the director's level and the commander's levels. So that's something that's very different from me and the other whistleblowers.
Yeah, I mean, you have access to just about everything from what it sounds like. So you were actively monitoring conversations and stuff like that?
Yes. Yep. And we also would try to find, copies of briefings and see what kind of intel we could gather off that. Really, all we were doing was we were trying to help the base commander who asked us to go out there and monitor for them, to treat the whole thing, the whole mission, as if we were like the Russians coming after them, and give them a really realistic, rough time about what we could find out. Because if we didn't, if we weren't hard on them, we weren't fixing things right, is what was thing. So we only had 2 missions as well. If you're talking about spying from our enemies, they do this for a lifetime. They'll be on Wright-Patterson for 20 years sometimes, doing a job, and gathering what intel they can. I'm only there for 2 weeks with my buds and other analysts, so we've got to really maximize our time to get the mission properly executed. So yeah, we needed the best phone numbers to gather intel. We needed the best access to the trusted agents that were on the site that only knew that we were there. So we were very secretive, just like the Russians would have been.
Absolutely. When you were briefed into this, when you were taking the job, when they were telling you, to listen to conversations, all that stuff, did the words UFO, UAP, NHI, were you ever told to listen for those kinds of words or anything like that?
We had our own database as we ran. Let me put it that way. Every single mission, we would gather acronyms and we would, make sure we had everything straight. We also had an officer over us that didn't deploy with us except for one time. But he was I believe, a nuclear physicist that could help us to understand what was going on scientifically with some things. So we got him as a backup on information as to, okay, we heard some jargon here about this acronym, what is and what's an AOE, And he would tell us, this is what scientifically AOE means. So we would build that up every mission. So we had quite a large database that was very specific to our mission type. And that's what we used and kept building on from mission to mission.
Okay, that's interesting. I want to go back. You said when you got there, the base commander gave you a tour. When you got a tour of the base,
Yep.
Anything stand out that you saw that you were like, holy moly, what is this?
I didn't see a holy moly like UFO sticking out of a hangar or anything like that. No, you just described what was here and there. What did stick out to me later on, and this was something after I found out about Mr. Hall, Charles Hall, and his story about being the weatherman out there, was that the base commander indeed said, "Hey, you want to go to the weather station?" And I just looked down, what do you got a weather station out here for? He said, "Oh, you'd be surprised." So that was something that I was like, absolutely. But he also mentioned, he said, you could work up there. And I'm like, really? Why would I want to do that? I don't even know anything about weather. But he said, well, it's one of you have free run of the entire base and nobody will stop you. You can look at everything, walk everywhere you want to. And I was like, okay. And then later on, I find out that that's exactly how they treated Charles Hall. So, no, I didn't take his job, but I did hear exactly. And that's why I think he's telling the full truth, is that there's nobody else that could know that same information. Some two individuals that were there, almost a decade apart, or even more. So I think he was in the 60s. I was in the early 90s. So yeah, there's quite a few years there, but that procedure would not be something that just any Joe Blow walking on the street would know about what was going on at the weather station. And how you could walk around the base, wherever you felt like, because you kind of were restricted to certain zones, due to the stovepipe thing. And they don't want you walking into, one office and another without permission, kind of thing.
That's interesting because that's corroboration from what he said. And I think that's really, really important because Charlie has an incredibly interesting story. So for you to come along, 2 decades later and kind of corroborate that,
yeah,
I think that's really, really important. And I think it's one of the roads in this UFO community or the UFO subject or conversation that really gets overlooked.
Yeah.
That, you're corroborating that story. It's just 2 people that work there corroborating a story. I think that's super important. That doesn't get talked about enough.
Mm-hmm. I think that too. And there's things that Bob Lazar says that I will corroborate as well. He knows some of the procedures as well, and they match everything I know as well. Just like with Charles Hall, there's certain things that you do, and because you work there, kind of deal. But I'll also vouch for Bob Lazar in that regard because I know he's speaking the truth about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's little things, like you just mentioned, just little things that you would only know if you had been there or worked there, that somebody else that worked there.
Right.
So,
I'm not going to give all the little secrets. I'm not going to give away all the little secrets either, because those are what I use to verify people that come forward and talk to me sometimes.
Yeah, exactly right. If everybody knows those little things, then they lose their meaning.
Yes.
No. So let's start. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this, the Nellis incident, that is so famous. So what were you told when you were at the base? You get told to go somewhere. What happened?
Are you talking about the blue guy, or are you talking about the one before that?
The one before that.
Oh, that was after I got in trouble. I asked my kids to come to the zoo while we're at White Sands. They found out, they blew their lids. They took me to turn in my badge and kicked me out of the program properly. Then it just glitched again. Can you hear me?
Yeah, same thing just happened.
Here we go.
That's weird. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I got in trouble for taking my family to the zoo down there in White Sands. That got me kicked out of the program. So we're turning in my badge at
Why would
Indian
that get you in
Springs.
trouble?
And that's when they went in with my badge. They went in to talk to whoever they had to. And then they came out. It was probably a good hour. I was sitting in the car. And they all looked very gravely like they just got some serious news. Coming back to the car, they looked really like, wow, So I just jokingly am asking them, hey, so what do they want to do? Do they want to kill me? And they're like, yes, they do. And they're like, and they're like, no, Jason, they wanted to put a bullet in your head and bury you in the desert dead, kind of a thing. And I was like, holy crap, And they said, we've got one more thing that you have to do. So just hang out in the barracks, and or hang out at home and we'll come get you. And I said, okay, whatever. So here I am expecting the worst. They do ask me to come with them. We go back up range to, in the place on the western side is called Talicha Peak. That's the main place or the main mountain that we would operate from for that. And there's a little, like a camper that has like all your food and your refrigerator and just a place to kind of hang out and have snacks and stuff in between missions while you're doing red flags. So we're waiting for a phone call. It's getting near dusk and they finally get the phone call and they're like, okay, we got to go. And we all get into the car and we go to the other side of the peak of the mountain. And there's this little concealment area. I passed by it a million times and never knew what it was for, that it even had a relationship with the mission or the legacy program until that day. And then we stop outside the gate. They put a hood on me, handcuffed me, and then they started to, I started to kind of feel like I couldn't breathe because it was a really close-knit kind of a mask or whatever they had on the hood. And I said, hey, can we roll up the hood because I can't breathe? And they said, okay. And they started rolling up the hood. And then at the same time, one of the other ones grabs my arm and starts to inject me with something. And I'm pretty big back then and very muscular. And they had a hell of a time trying to get it in me. I don't think they got a full shot in me. But it was good enough for them, I guess. And they thought that I was drugged up in that. So anyway, we got through the gate guard. The gate guard ushered us back to a building that's at the back of the cantonment area. And underneath that cantonment area, there's a ramp that goes down. There's some storage off to the right. There's these prison cells to the left. And a freight elevator at the back that goes down into probably some tunnel systems back there, or around Talicha Peak around there. So there I am. They pushed me into one of these one of these cells that has a metal door on it. And there's another security guy standing there. And there's a person leaning up against the wall with a bag over his head too. And the guard shuts the door and he tells me, you're gonna go kill that guy. And I was like, why? What's he done? I was like, he's like, nope, don't even ask, just pull the trigger. And I said, no, I'm not doing that until you tell me. And so he pulls out his weapon and he shoots it. And I got pissed. I grabbed his gun. I broke his arm. I grabbed him by the neck, even though I was handcuffed, and held him up against the wall. I was going to, really, I was actually going to kill him for what he just did. And then he squeaks out that he's got a wife and kids at home, so I let him go. So I go over and run over to the guy in the corner, and as I'm getting closer to him, I'm like, holy shit, this is not a human. And so I try to cradle his head as best I can and comfort him. And all the time that this was going on, when I got within 50 feet of that building, it must have been a telepathic kind of a connection, but I could feel that I just felt like hatred, anger, a little bit of tinged with sadness and stuff. And it must have been telepathy from this being because at the time of him getting shot, that all stopped. But now I was feeling another telepathic message and that it was very calm. This being looked to me like a typical gray. And he didn't have black eyes, though. And I can feel him telepathically. He never opened his mouth. He telepathically told me, he felt sorry for me, and that we as humans are squandering our potential. And all this while he was dying. And it just has always affected me very strangely for this whole time. But just that is what he felt as he was passing away, that he wanted to tell me that. And it was a very profound moment for me to have a being from another planet or wherever he's from think that about us and want for us to do better. And that really affected me. And then he passed away. I felt him telepathically pass away. It was like a light dimming, and then there was blackness, and then I couldn't feel him anymore. But I did feel him also be thankful that I was there and that I had compassion for him. He kind of befriended me in those last few moments, and that also sticks with me. So that was their way of, I guess, kicking me out of the program. Instead of them putting a bullet in my head, this was their introduction to me starting to do parts of this retrieval program where you go out and you have to hunt down and kill, and things like this. But it got even weirder than that. There was like flashback memories of all kinds of stuff that they did to me. And people have been asking me, dude, get hypnotized and remember it all. I'm like, I don't want to fucking remember this stuff. It was a horror show, man. I have trouble just with what I do, the fragments I remember right now. And so it led into a lot of the whole dark world of this backdrop of, realization that these aliens got their own problems too. And they got people that need to get hunted down as well, just like we do. And that there are other beings out there that are like that and do wish us harm. But I was on the teams to try to eradicate them. That's what I was doing. So there was a mix of both a human and an NHI type presence inside that program, because it was a mutual mission to get rid of these reprobate creatures that, like people always talk about the reptilians and stuff like that. Well, yeah, guess what? Yeah, I had to confront those with my team. And stuff like that happened. There was another one that happened with the Dracos. Those were another set that are really reprobate. And every time you encounter these beings, they are like, completely opposite of that nice feeling I got telepathically from the alien that was dying. These ones exuded a completely evil thing, like you're listening to what a pedophile / psychopathic murderer, serial murderer is feeling. They were that ugly in their thoughts. There was no doubt in my mind that if I had given an inch to them, that they would have, not thought twice about doing anybody in, tearing us to pieces, even a baby. I don't even care about that. That was the kind of thing that I felt like they were capable of, just truly evil beings. So yeah, that was the first one. And then the next one was after that incident with that alien getting killed. Yeah, they ended up going up range, and this was probably about at least 5 months later in October or something. I think it got kicked out around February or March of the program. And then later on that year, that's when I have another encounter with another alien being that went onto the range. Then he was in trouble as well. I felt as though he was working with the guys in the program and had an altercation of some kind after all the incident was over. People have always asked me, well, why was he running to tail down your convoy, and why do you think he was there? I think he had an altercation with some of the humans up there, because when he was talking to me telepathically, I also got another big wave of emotion of disgust, because when he said he needed to repair his craft, and I pointed at Groom Lake and I said, well, there's technology up there that might be able to help you. And he was this wave of disgusting. I'm not going to ask those murderers and barbarians for anything. So something happened to him that he didn't like either. So some of the NHI up there that are working with the legacy program folks don't like what is going on up there, is what I can tell you. And that's also evident even when I wasn't in trouble and I was actually just going out on missions. Whenever the NHI were mentioned as being part of the laboratory environment, it was not all hunky-dory. The NHI did not want a single human in the laboratory with them when they were there. So it wasn't something that they took lightly, and it was highly managed and controlled. So it's not like this free-for-all like people sometimes think. So that's what those three, I would say from those three different sets of events, that it's not a good situation in all phases. I'm sure they get along at other mission types, but not all of them. And in the laboratories either. The aliens are not here to give us technology to poke our eyes out with it. I definitely got that impression while I was fully on board in working missions. It sounded like the aliens wanted very little to do with building weapon systems and giving us technology to harm ourselves.
Any idea why the government...
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, I still can't hear you. What I did was I poked my access, I think. Let me restart. Let me jump out and jump back in. Maybe that'll fix it.
Guys, just one moment. Jason's having some technical issues. Hopefully he jumps right back on here. Thank you for joining us. This is a fascinating conversation. I've never heard anything like it. So we'll see what else Jason has to bring to us when he gets back. Also, really appreciate it if you would press the like button, hit subscribe, share the video, leave a comment, let us know what you think of the interview. Sorry for the technical issues, but hopefully we get those resolved. So like and subscribe. Okay, could you hear me now?
Yes, indeed. I can now. I can hear you.
All right, we're on track. Your video actually looks a lot better now as well. A lot more.
Oh, good. Yeah, like I said, I get monitored all the time. I think I'm under surveillance even now, so.
I wouldn't doubt it. This is the first time I've ever had issues like this. So it's definitely abnormal.
Yeah, it is. And anyways, they're not going to find anything out. I don't talk about anything classified. It's just about the situation at work, my experience, and the things that I've already spoken to all the legal channels about what I can say publicly. And these are all the things I stay within my bounds, but I'll never tell you about the weapon systems I've heard of and how the technologies are developing and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you a quick, why do you think the government, in your opinion, wants some of these things unalived?
Well, from what I know, as I agree with some of the other whistleblowers, that yes, there's only 3 or 4 types that are usually mentioned. And that is, there's the tall whites, there's the grays, there's the reptilians. And then to me, there's sometimes Nordics. I think Eric Davis says that, mantids or insectoids. I never encountered an insectoid inside the legacy program. However, I do believe there was some Nordic activity there. But there's all these other beings that are out there that aren't part of this program, and some of them are problem children. They have had wars probably with other factions of beings elsewhere. There's always that competition for resources out there that affects us as well as them. Some of them need resources for the types of propulsion they use and energy. Some of them have cultures that are overpopulators and they eat up entire planets' resources and just go on to the next because of their culture. All these things are probably way beyond what people imagine right now. But those are the kind of things that have come to my mind from my experience because of the things I've heard and been exposed to. So that's the reason why, is that these other NHI that are out there, some of them are troublemakers. They are the ones, I think, also that in ancient texts are spoken of, that they desired human blood and human sacrifice. They wanted literally to be treated like gods, and they wanted to enslave us or make us do things for them that they wanted. And somehow they all got stopped, a couple of millennia ago. So maybe that we've already had a big war between them that was in ancient history, but I think there's another one building up now. So that's probably what this talk about, 2027. I've always said that 2027, that's not correct. It's more a window of time. It's like 2027 until 2037 or something like that is more accurate. That's when the return of the NHI will come, and they're going to demand that this program give up all of its technologies and its prisoners that they've captured from all these retrievals, and that may come along with a mission type that's also going to engage with all these other beings that are here illegally in their minds, or doing things that are not supposed to be done. Because, if you've got a government here on this planet, well, what does the government in the galaxy think about what's going on this planet? And I'm pretty sure that most of them would agree that, just like we would, that there's certain crimes that you don't want to step into, but that seems exactly to be the way that some of the eyewitnesses are describing their abduction, is that these creatures definitely were doing bad things. So I think that if that's true, then certainly we're headed towards a climax of some kind. And when I was on mission, I had heard that, yeah, indeed, they will be coming back for their technology that we have. So there's a good reason for them to return as well.
Any idea, have you heard, like, during service or after, how many aliens do we have on Earth? Any idea?
I would say that, yeah, I've heard of bases, and if they're there, I'm sure there could easily be, She just went out. Can you hear me anymore?
Are you there? We lost your video again.
Okay. Jan?
Still there?
In a second.
Yep, take your time. Everybody, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments.
There we go.
Answered. Looks like we got Jason back. Jason, thanks for putting up with all this for us. You want to try to go out and come back in again? Sorry for all these technical issues we're having, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us, for having the patience to stay. I apologize for this. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully we get Jason back.
All right. Can you see me now? I'm using my computer now. I'm getting off my phone completely. It seems to be totally infiltrated today. So anyway, that's my feeling, though, is that there are a lot of other beings out there, and some of them just aren't nice, So therefore, there is a mission type to get rid of them and, keep it under control, or just like we do with criminality in our society. So, yeah, if there's another civilization, they have a form of government just like ours, and they don't like having people hurting each other.
It makes sense to me. I don't think we do either. When you encountered the blue being, any idea what the being was doing there in the first place?
I would say that he probably was just helping, since he had BDUs on, like I did. He was some sort of a worker bee kind of a type. I think that he was probably just working up there on range, up there at Groom Lake. Something happened that he didn't like, so he hopped in one of the vehicles or the craft and started to take off. And I think the reason the craft got damaged was because they shot at him and tried to take him out. But they weren't successful. So I think that's really what was happening. So what he was doing there, I don't know. I have heard, at least from Charles Hall, if you listen to him, that yes, we kind of co-built some types of UAP type craft with the tall whites. And I think that if that was the case, then maybe he was working with the humans on some of that.
And
so I think that's, well, go ahead.
With the blue being that you encountered, was it the same type of telepathy that you encountered with the other one in this jail cell?
Yeah.
Did it feel the same?
Yes, it did. The intense emotional parts were very difficult for me to decide whether it was coming from me or them. Same thing in both encounters. And the civility and control of thoughts was very much prevalent in both of them. And I give credit to the fact that, they're telepathic. And that's the reason that their thoughts are so much more organized than ours. Because if you can imagine you being an infant with a telepathic ability, and your parents had telepathic ability and everybody around you did, you'd grow up a whole lot different than you do now. I mean, right now we feel like our thoughts are not listenable, that, anything we think about is private. For them, that's not true, So we think about all kinds of crazy stuff in our heads. And that was something that definitely was exactly the same in all telepathic conditions.
Okay, that's interesting. But they looked different? They didn't look the same, correct?
Very much so, yes. So apparently emotions feel exactly like ours. Even thoughts are like ours. And for some reason, the one that I encountered, the blue alien, he had to talk. He either chose to talk at the same time he was telepathically talking to me, or he had to do that regularly for his work to talk to the humans. But I just happened to be receptive to the telepathic part. I don't know. But all I know is at the same time he was talking to me, it was a different language and it was telepathic. And, well, no, I guess he'd have to, if he was speaking to me in another language, then I guess he could speak to other people telepathically. So, yeah, they couldn't have been coming from me because I don't feel telepathic right now. I'm like, yeah, that's a good question because nobody ever asked me that. But, yeah, now thinking about it, I'm like, no, telepathy definitely came from him. And but he had to audibly spoke his own language. Sounded like a weird take on like Norwegian or something like that to me. And then, the telepathic part, that's where I got the meaning of all the words. And I think that's something that people have asked me about as well, is that do you feel like, the telepathic meaning of the words is where we used to be able to talk telepathically with each other in the past as humans, and we've just somehow lost the ability to do that. And I'd say, well, it's possible, yeah, because it felt very natural. I didn't get a headache from it. I wasn't woozy, and I didn't feel like I was being invaded by some villain from a comic book. It was just a natural way to talk.
I wonder if, when you were recruited into those programs, I wonder if somehow the government knew, not that maybe you were telepathic, but, this person is sensitive to telepathy, and NHI could have said, okay, I could communicate with this person or that person, with this person. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. They could have profiled me that way. I know they DNA tested me pretty soon after I got onboarded. I had to go to the hospital and they took a DNA test. They said, this is just for deployments. And I'm like, well, why didn't you take it when I was back in Germany? Because that's when I was on deployment status.
Right.
So they did all those kinds of things. Maybe something in the DNA tells you whether you've got a propensity towards that or not. All I know is that, well, the other thing that I've been told is common amongst people like myself is PTSD, and having kind of trauma in your life. And I'd have to say from a very early age, that was me. My dad was an alcoholic early on. I don't want anybody to think badly of him. He ended up correcting his behavior some years later and became a really great person and a great dad and everything else. But whenever he drank, he was not himself, and he would do some pretty awful things. So PTSD is a part of my life, just like other whistleblowers have stated that they had similar things. Another thing I've heard is a common, and that is the fact that a lot of us have Native American blood in us. Some of us are not fully part of a given tribe or nation, but we have enough blood traces, I guess. So all of those things may have been indicators for them that I'm a good candidate, I guess. You're right. There might have been some other medical and physical things that were going on.
And you mentioned earlier as well that before you ever joined the military, you had some kind of encounters or anything. What could you tell us what happened then?
Well, like I said, it's been a part of my family upbringing. Had 2 incidents with Nordics. My mother was there for both of those. So while we were doing UFO con, she was actually there and was able to verify and corroborate with me. I was there, and yes, I did see these beings that Jason is speaking of, because I was his mom for both of those times. But that was in childhood. The first one was when I was about 5 years old. The other one was about 10. They're very helpful though. And I believe the Nordics are helpful people because they were the ones there. It seemed like they just knew right when to show up for me, and they were very protective of me and my family.
Interesting.
When I had
communicate telepathically then too.
I didn't feel like it was telepathy. No, it was more like they talked. They could have been listening, and just I couldn't feel them like I could the other guys. Maybe they do have that ability to telepathically feel what we're thinking, but they didn't lead on in either case. They looked like they were directly talking to me audibly in my language. So that was a little bit of a difference there. But yeah, I don't remember a telepathic component with them. I did have another experience with some sort of I don't know what the hell it was, a creature or something that flew in my window and landed on my bed around the same time when I was about 6 years old in Fort Devens. And it landed on my bed it looked like a weird, huge freaking moth that had like moth-like wings. Had like one of those plastic dolls without the arms, and without any facial features. It looked like it had a body like that with 2 stubby little legs sticking out the bottom. And I guess if I were to pick some kind of a description that I've heard elsewhere, it's a cherub. It looked like a freaking cherub, like a little baby with wings. That's what it looked like. And then it flew out the window once I screamed bloody murder. And my parents came in the ring after I ran out and forced them to come see. And they could see it flying out the window and down the street and out into the distance. So again, my family were part of that. And that was it. That was the only other creature in childhood that I remember. About the same time that the Nordics showed up when I was 10 years old, I had my first UFO experience too, where I saw a red light come down from what it looked like outer space and ended up floating over my friend Eddie's house at the bottom of the street in San Jose, California. And this was December because I remember we had our Christmas tree up. The lights were all off in my room, and here comes this red light, and it just keeps getting closer and closer to my friend Eddie's house. And then there's this big flash of white light, and in the place of this red plasmoid object. There's this shiny drop of mercury just about 10 feet out or 15 feet off the roof line of my friend Eddie's house. And it just gradually starts moving towards the street. And I scream again to my parents, there's a UFO, there's a UFO. And I was going, and I ran out of my room to go get my dad's binoculars out of the hallway closet. So the only person that responded was my mom, and she came out on the front lawn. And at that point, the UFO came out underneath the street light that was right there at the end of my friend Eddie's house driveway. And you could see it perfectly. There wasn't a rivet. It was just perfectly smooth. Had this little flange or antenna sticking out the front of it that looked like a shark fin. It was not aerodynamic. It didn't need it to fly. It looked like it was just part of it. So maybe it was some kind of a sensor. But that was the only thing that marked its surface or changed its surface. Otherwise, it would have been perfectly smooth all around. And then it takes off into the sky. My mom was witnessing that part with me. It joins up with another point of light, and they spin around each other. And then the spot of light that I saw remained stationary, and the second light shot off across the horizon so fast that, I couldn't, my eyes couldn't keep up with it, but I could still kind of see it out in my peripheral vision. But that is how fast it was going. And it must have been thousands of miles an hour. I've seen falling stars, and it was way, way faster than the falling star.
Was it any sort of color? Was there any colors?
Yes. And then it was red at first and then white. And then the light that it joined, that one was white also. They looked like stars in the sky when they flew up. So that was the only colors I saw other than the silver of the crown or whatever you're going to call it. It looked just like a drop of mercury. It was kind of flat on the bottom, kind of domed on the top. So it's kind of like this, and then it had that little appendage sticking out on the front. So those are the only colors that I recall from that incident.
Wow. That's a lot. When the cherub thing was there, did it say anything, any kind of message or anything like that?
No, I was actually just really afraid. I had no idea what it was. Whatever it was very heavy, and it stood about 2 foot tall. I wasn't going to mess with any butterfly that was that damn big. I was just a little guy, 6 years old. I was just freaked out as all get out. But no, I did not feel anything from it. I felt fear. That was the only thing I remember. Fear. I was like, holy crap, what is that thing?
Yeah, I could understand that. I would have felt the same exact way. Let me ask you this. After everything you've been through, what scared or scares you more? The phenomena or the people that are actually controlling the information about the phenomena?
I believe the people are more of a threat because they don't understand fully what they're dealing with, first of all. Second of all, they also chose to take the World War II era nuclear threat and, everybody could be a commie, even your neighbor, and they took that fear and they built on it early on, and they've never let go of it. And instead of seeing that times were changing and that they didn't have to lie anymore, which in turn led to them harming other people, even Americans, that's when they should have started, the leadership should have switched stance and gone, wait a minute. We can say we're not alone, but that we want to keep all this weapon stuff secret because we want to defend our nation. Nobody in the leadership ever went that direction. And to me, that is a fallacy on their own part. They could have stopped the lying part and the deception, because they have literally, I think from what I've heard from other whistleblowers, they have literally harmed and maybe even murdered people just to keep their lie safe. Just to say, no, we don't know anything about aliens. It's like bullshit, no, you do. And everybody freaking knows you do. If you just get that monkey off your back, you won't have to hurt people anymore because you don't have a lie to get caught in. And eventually, yeah, you might find out that it's okay. in that coming clean on this is a better option than us having to kick in your doors and finding out the same crap. And now you're going to spend life in prison. That's the thing. That's the decision-making process of a leader that has had way too much time not having any oversight, way too much time with too much authority and power, and has made some very bad decisions. That's what's going on. And that's why I came forward.
Well, thank you for coming forward. The more information we have, it's the more pieces of the puzzle that we can put together until the government or whoever these gatekeepers are actually share the information with us that does not belong to them. They don't get to decide what reality is. They don't get to decide if we're alone, if we're not alone, and the secrets of the universe. Everything.
I will caveat that. I do want to caveat that maybe the NHI has a dog in the fight as well. They do, because they're in civilization, just like if we were on their planet. They got certain rights as well, and maybe they don't want to go public yet. So maybe they're catching it from both ends. Maybe some of that has influenced some of their decision making as well. So I will give them credit on that one thing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't really think of that, and that's an excellent point. They could be here with us, and it may completely change their way of life if we were to find out about them. So that's a very, very good point.
I try to be fair with everybody. I'm a very patient, kind person at heart. But I will fight back, or I will point out, somebody else's wrongdoings if it's the only way forward, because some people are just that prideful and stoic about their bad decision making. And that I feel like in a way that's kind of what I've confronted over these past few years since I've come forward, is there's a community of people out there that are just so stoically stuck in their paradigm that they can't fight or even think of a way out of it, because that's all they've ever known. So that's sad to say, especially with something as important as contact with other beings from other planets and or civilizations that are here on our planet. That you just don't. Yeah, you're right. We have a right to know about that, at least.
Yeah, exactly right. I kind of feel like it's kind of like when they built the nuclear bomb. Everybody knew that we had a nuclear bomb, but they didn't release the plans on how we built it or instructions on how to build a nuclear bomb. We at least have a right to know if there are other creatures or whatever you want to call them, entities on the planet with us. I don't see how that hurts national security. It's just a fundamental question I think every human deserves to have the answer.
Exactly. I feel the same way. And that's another thing, is that even though I think I saw some fraud, waste, and abuse, and that's what made me come forward, that there would still been something sticking in my craw about all that too. Yeah, we have a right to know.
Right. And, also, not even to mention, like you just said, fraud, waste, and abuse. Where's our tax? We have a right to know where our tax money is going.
Exactly.
Our money that is funding these things. We have
the first things I told them.
Yep.
I told them in Congress when I gave my testimony for the first time back in 2022, I was like, isn't it time that this has had a good review? I mean, how many years has gone by now without any oversight, or you guys getting the Heisman or the finger, whatever the case may be? There's no telling where the status of this program has gone or where the money is. And I agree with Tim Burchett. He really has been after, like, okay, regardless of all the little green men, I want to know where the freaking money has gone from the taxpayers. Where did you spend all this crap? What do we have to show for it? Has any of this defended our nation, or are you still playing with toys? Have you only made a few breakthroughs and everything else is just a waste of money? We need to ask those kind of serious questions of them, and they just refuse to let that happen.
Absolutely right. Especially when you have people like as serious as Dr. James Lukatsky saying that we gained access to a craft. How much taxpayer money was spent on that program to access that craft and try to reverse engineer? It's got to be an astronomical figure. So
yes.
We have the right to know. And I think what he said too, I've heard so many people say about crafts, like, I walked into it and it looked way bigger than it looked from the outside. On the inside, it looked like it never ended. But on the outside, it looked like a normal size. And James Lukatsky said that, and that has been backed up for decades by other people who have said the same thing. So it's all this corroborating evidence that corroborates each other.
Yeah, the more I stick with it, the more I see that too. There's a lot of things that start to tie up some of the loose strings. I'm finding that in a lot of people that don't even know each other. They describe things very similarly. And yeah, I know somebody that has a similar incident where they had a craft that they could see that was at a distance, and yet the creature they saw came out of a doorway or a portal right in front of them. And to me, yeah, it might have been an interdimensional type of creature, or from a higher dimension kind of creature, and that's why it appeared. The UFO appeared over here, and the door was over here. Is perhaps in their dimension, that's the way things are. Because you've got all these different facets and sides to everything instead of the four corners that we are used to. They've got 10 more that they can walk through. So it's like a hallway of mirrors to us, but to them it makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
In your opinion, and this goes with kind of what we were just talking about, is secrecy about national security, or is the secrecy about the government wanting to shape humanity's worldview?
It's meant for national security reasons, but I believe that they hide behind it a lot of times, just like you've seen politically, one party or the other, Democrats or Republicans, that they won't allow something they will classify something just to hide it. So it is used for manipulation. And I would also say that classifying things is kind of a pain, and declassifying is even a bigger pain. So when I was working at NSA on their campus for Cybercom, you mainly do most of you work on the top secret network, but you have access to a secret network, and you also have an unclassified network. So why would I communicate on all three of them if I could just push the conversation up to the top secret level and classify it at that level because of the system I'm on? So a lot of things get over classified for that reason. It's more convenient to keep things at the top secret level. And now all of a sudden you have to do a review, like the president wants to get all these files disclosed. Now you got to do a review to get it all downloaded to the unclassified system to the public. So that's the problem, is that just by virtue of people's laziness, so to speak, that's kind of how things get overclassified sometimes. And other times they just don't know what the classification is, and they'll slap a higher classification on just for good measure until they find out for sure what it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to be slapping classified markings on. Don't get me wrong with that. Every single classification marking needs to be backed up by a no kidding classification guide, or you can do it derivatively from another document that is similar that talks about that same subject. And if it's classified secret, then you're safe to mark it secret on your new document.
You're there. I think you froze up. Bear with us, folks. Just a little bit of a tech issue. Hit the like button. Hit subscribe on the channel. We're trying to get this seen by more people. And we depend on you for that. I need you. If you'd be so kind, click like, click share, leave a comment. It would be much appreciated. Jason, you there?
Okay.
There you go.
There we go. Can you hear and see me now?
Let me see. One sec. There we go. Okay. Could you... All good?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Yep. All
okay, good. Yeah, it seems backing all the way out gets the glitch out of there, but now it's on my laptop now, so I'm definitely being monitored. We're being monitored. This just doesn't happen ever.
Say hi to the CIA, everybody.
Hello, guys. I'm not doing anything bad. I want the best for you guys too. I just want to get to an even playing field. If you're listening, please listen to some common sense. The lies need to stop, guys. You need some leadership that's willing to step up and say, yeah, we did some things, but we need to come clean now. And then you can maintain your national security. Nobody's got a problem with that, okay? But just stop telling lies, all right?
Absolutely right.
Okay, that was my public statement to the CIA and the rest of them. Yeah, I'm trying my best. And all the whistleblowers don't want to hang you either. There are some serious questions to be answered, though. And that's the other thing. What have you done with the money, mainly? And if you've harmed the American citizens, there's going to be some other questions that come your way as well. And you know you shouldn't have been doing that in the first place.
Yeah, I think the solution is, I think amnesty needs to be granted for everything except violence. Maybe people wouldn't be so afraid to come forward if they knew, we spent money here that we shouldn't have, kind of stuff like that. I think amnesty should be granted. But as far as harming people or harming Americans, you got to be held accountable for that.
Yeah, that's the no-go for me, because I'm like, especially the ones that are the whistleblowers, because they witness fraud, waste, and abuse. I don't care what NDA I've signed or anybody else has signed. If you see fraud, waste, and abuse, the NDA means absolutely nothing. Because if I don't feel trustworthy of my leadership because I saw them commit some kind of crime, and I'm telling somebody that, hey, look, I don't know what I just saw, but I'm pretty sure it was a crime. I wish you would investigate. Hands off, dudes. If you are committing crimes, that's your problem, not mine. You're not allowed to go out and start killing people.
Yeah, an NDA is not supposed to be used to cover up crimes. It's kind of invalid at that point.
Exactly. That's the same thing with overclassifying something. It's just you're hiding behind it. You need to stop. You're exactly right.
Huge problem in the government is overclassification. They're classifying anything and everything that does not belong in a classified.
Yeah, and another public announcement is that I told Congress that you guys should be given amnesty until everything's on the table. And then I'm sure 99.9% of you haven't done anything bad. But there are some people that need to go to freaking jail for telling you to do what you did. Okay? That's the problem that has come out behind the scenes. But I actually vouch for all the people I worked with. They're still my friends. I still consider them my friends. There's a lot of great people in the program that are just thinking they're doing a patriotic job just like I did. But I've seen the uglies, and I'm convinced that there are some people making very bad decisions right now. And I think David Grush also pointed out in his speech on Capitol Hill was that should open people's eyes in that the corporate world is probably a bigger problem, because they're the ones who can just hire mercenaries and assassinate people. We saw that just with people talking bad about the safety issues with certain kinds of airliners, for crying out loud. And now we're talking about a secret legacy program that they're part of as well. I'm pretty sure they pulled a fast one on other people, So the corporate world is another factor in all of this that is taking a swipe at some of the whistleblowers and other people. But some of them are actually willing to come forward now because all they've been working on is technology, and they do want to help the world. And they do see some profit in that, because now they can sell their technology to, say, the medical industry or the power production industry, and they can make some more money off of that stuff. And so it's kind of a mutual good thing for them to come forward with some of that. But please, don't tell us about what's in the weapons system for national security. Everybody gets that. That's not what we're talking about. So stop saying that it's about national security all the time. We're not that dumb.
Could not agree more. Let me ask you this. What truth about the subject do you think the public is least psychologically prepared to hear?
Right now, it's taken these past 3 to 4 years just for Congress to say this is for real. You couldn't say that last year even. I have alluded to the dark side of what they did to me, in that there are big implications, that there are mission types now that are taking place that include both humans and NHI, both willfully and involuntarily. I'm pretty sure that there's some things to be said about that the public is just not ready to hear right now. It's how deep does this actually go? And I can tell you, just to frame your mind, that now that we're in this position this year, that we've had some disclosure now from government, and they're convinced that this is real. How deep does the rabbit hole go is now something. And think about this. It's been 80 years just about that they've been in contact with these beings. And that's a long time to have some interface with them, probably some agreements, all kinds of stuff could have happened in that time frame, you know?
Absolutely.
So I'm just telling you that that's the kind of thing that the public is not ready to hear about right now, is that we're not talking about, we just found out about this today. It's been 80 years of this, people. What the heck do you think they have possibly been up to should be what you're thinking about, rather than, oh, shiny objects are real. That's the very basic thing to realize at this point, is that the shiny objects are real. That shiny object represents a civilization that this government, the Russians and the Chinese, have all said, we don't know who or where that came from. Okay? That is what you're looking at. Recognize that that represents a civilization that knows who's flying that thing, or who manufactured it even. That's the kind of next step that people need to be thinking about, is get over the shiny object thing. There's a whole depth to, this is a civilization that's creating and manufacturing these vehicles. Okay. That's where the rabbit hole really starts. And then you can let your mind wander through how much could have happened over these past 80 years. Okay.
Have you heard anything about an alien-human hybrid program?
I've been talked to about it. I didn't really give it much credit until somebody when I was still working as a contractor and had top secret clearance, and I was working on the UAP task force website on some things, and they heard about my story, and they asked me, well, this guy looks like a hybrid then. He looks like a hybrid between a tall white and maybe some other species. And that's the first time I actually heard hybrid being used, is when the Intel community and everybody else saw my story. That's where it originated, was on that top secret network. So yeah, are you still there? Can you hear me?
Now you froze up. Yeah, you froze up for a second, but I think we're good now.
Yeah, you did too. Okay. So anyway, that's what I would say, is just that, yeah, there's probably hybrids out there. There's a good reason for that too.
I think
when you get out to outer space, well, think about it. If we get to Mars in 2030 or 2035 or whatever, and our bodies are going to adapt to the Martian surface over time. So in a way, we kind of modify our own bodies, right? Did you get to hear all that?
Yeah. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, because you're flashing in and flashing out too. But that's kind of the way I think is that, yeah, I can hear you too.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, hybrids are probably a possibility, and it seems like a lot of people that have experienced the grays, that is what grays are into, because it's modifying DNA, both their own and ours.
I just think there's been so much talk of it and so many people coming forward, these experiencers, that even if 2% of it is true, that still makes it true, But I think we're having some technical issues again.
Yeah, and you're glitching. We are. Let me back out again and see if that helps fix it. Other than that, we probably should.
Yeah, try to back out and come back in, and then we'll wrap it up. Guys, thank you for your patience. It's much appreciated. I know we've had some serious technical glitches during this interview. Okay, Jason is coming back. Hopefully that resolved our issue. Okay,
All right, we're back.
there? Yeah, back and better than ever. So I just have a couple more questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up while I still got you. How has your reception been since you've come forward? You there? Could you hear me?
Okay, are you stable?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Oh, you're frozen on my
me?
side now.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm plugged in on my Ethernet cable, so I don't know what's going on. Could you hear me? All right, let's try it one more time and then we'll wrap it up. Thanks for your patience, guys. I apologize for these tech issues. Just bear with us for just another minute. Okay, could you hear me?
No, I heard absolutely nothing. I had trouble getting back in.
How about now?
Yeah, your voice is a little bit delayed. I remember the last thing you said was we're going to wrap up, and you got a couple more questions.
Yeah, so let's just first, before any other glitches, Jason, thank you for coming on Beyond Top Secret by UAP Reporting Center. I think you've shared a lot of knowledge with us, and I'm sure our viewers are going to appreciate that. Look up Jason. Jason, where can people find you online?
I have my biggest following on X, and it's just my name, Jason T. Sands, all one word with the @ symbol in front of it. Most of the other apps, the next app I would say is probably, what is it, TikTok. Yeah, TikTok, because that's where I talk to the people overseas. So, and again, it's my name with the @ symbol. So just about anywhere where you see my name, it's either J.T. Sands or Jason T. Sands on any of the platforms. And you can get a hold of me there. I'm usually very responsive if I have time, and I'll at least say hello. And then if you want to tell me your story, I definitely will put aside time to do that. And I do answer questions as people go. And yeah, if I've got time to do that, I will respond.
Awesome. And I will have Jason's link for Twitter and other things in the comments of this video. So just click more. You'll see Jason's link. Make sure you follow him on X, TikTok, and anywhere else you find him. Jason, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Maybe we can do this again someday. Hopefully we have less technical issues, but we managed to get through it, and it's much appreciated. Hey, thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. I really had a good time. Thank you. And for all my followers, thank you. I've been trying to give out kudos to you guys too, because I wouldn't be here if I didn't have the support from you all. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we have to support, people that are brave enough to come forward, like Jason. So give Jason your support. Whistleblowers need the public support more than ever. So support Jason, support all the other brave whistleblowers who have come forward. And Jason, until next time, I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, guys, thank you for watching that. I hope you got something out of it. I thought it was a fascinating conversation. We had some tech issues. What are you going to do? That happens sometimes. So like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions for Jason, leave them in the comments. I will be sure to get them to him. Until next time, for Beyond Top Secret by UAP Reporting Center, catch you in the next one.